Hello, and welcome to my PowerPoint about flushes in Balatro. So there are, of course, 4 suits in Balatro, just as there are 4 suits in poker. You have 4 tarot cards that go alongside them, which will convert 3 cards into the suit that is listed. The star will turn 3 cards into diamonds, sun will turn 3 into hearts, the moon will turn 3 into clubs, and the world will turn 3 into spades. Typically, if you're not playing a flush build, these are some of the worst tarot cards you can get, as they don't really do anything if you're not playing flushes, and even if you do get them, they only really help you 1/4 of the time because, well, 3 of them don't really help you if you're going for all of one suit. But let's look at some of the suits. Of course, we start with diamonds, which does have the least amount of jokers, and realistically, a lot of people think is one of the worst suits because the only joker that it does have doesn't help score. Greedy Joker is the same as all the others. There's Greedy, Lusty, Wrathful, and Gluttonous, and what it does is when you played card with a diamond suit is scored, it gives +3 mult when scored. So, a maximum of 15, or if you're just playing, any kind of hand, you could just throw a few diamonds in, get a little bit of mult. The main joker that diamonds do have is Rough Gem, which when you play a card with a diamond, you'll gain $1 when scored. This is actually not that bad, and I understand why people think it's not the greatest, right? It doesn't score, and well, all the other jokers do actually help you score, but $5 isn't the worst. It's basically just better than, say, Golden Joker, right, which gives you $4 at the end of the round. And if you're playing a couple of diamond jokers, diamond cards throughout your round, you can actually accrue some pretty decent money. That's even before you count re-triggers from, Sock and Buskin, or Hack, or, Hanging Chad, where you can gain a lot more money. I do understand, though, why people do think that diamonds probably are the worst of the suits, but don't count Rough Gem out. It's really, pretty decent. Then we have hearts. Hearts are also tied with diamonds for having the least amount of jokers, but unlike diamonds, they kind of have the best suit joker. Bloodstone has a 1 in 2 chance for played cards with heart suit to give 1.5 times mult when scored. That means that if you have a full flush of 5 hearts, it can trigger 5 times. Bloodstone kind of needs oops all 6s to work. You don't need it for anything, but the inconsistency of Bloodstone really can hold it back if you don't have an oops all 6s. If you do, Bloodstone is incredibly powerful. It's effectively just Ancient Joker, which, of course, Ancient Joker is an incredibly powerful Joker that we'll talk about later, but you do still have to be careful, right? There is still a possibility of not hitting the 1.5x mult, and that can lose you a run. To note, though, a lot of these jokers that are on score, you must have as many, you want to play as many levels in your poker hand as possible. Of course, flushes are Jupiter, which, Jupiter isn't the greatest. It only gives so many points. We'll get to that later as well. But, like I'm saying, all of these, on scoring jokers basically get all of their value from having a lot of levels in your poker hand because they score before your other jokers actually score. So if you want to have a lot of levels basically in Flush and Jupiter to make Bloodstone gain a lot of value. Lusty Joker, of course, it's the same as all the others. I'm not going to read it off. So clubs actually have 4 jokers that directly synergize with them. It is the most, I believe. Yeah, it is the most. Yet that doesn't necessarily make it so clubs are the best. We start with Seeing Double. Seeing Double gives ×2 mult if played hand has a scoring club and a scoring card of any other suit. Now, note, that means that Seeing Double actively does not do anything if your entire deck is full of clubs. Which means that to gain value from it, you either are going to have wild cards, which, yeah, you can. Lovers does exist, but it only makes 1 wild card, which is pretty bad. And that's why a lot of these wild card synergistic jokers aren't very good. Or you're not playing a flush with Seeing Double, you're just playing anything and you're throwing a club in there. Yeah. Seeing Double, its condition is actually pretty difficult to do consistently for only ×2 mult. It's really just not that great. Then there's Onyx Agate. Onyx Agate is effectively just an upgrade to, you know, Wrathful, Gluttonous, Lusty, and Greedy, where instead of giving plus 3 molt if a club is scored, it gives plus 7 molt. That increases it from 15 to 35. That's not terrible, it really isn't, especially, I mean, if you are running both, it goes to 50 molt, but the best way to get value out of Onyx Agate is to have re-triggers, and if you're playing a flush build with re-triggers, you might as well just have, like, Bloodstone or Ancient Joker, and yeah, of course, you could always just not hit them, but I don't think I would go out of my way to take Onyx Agate and take it further than, like, Ante-5. I think it just, like, falls off incredibly hard by that point. It doesn't really match the scaling of, you know, the gold stake scaling unless you have other really powerful jokers to support it, but yeah, it's kinda not the greatest. And that's part of the, that's the thing about a lot of these flush jokers, is that while flushes are fine, a lot of the jokers that synergize with them are actually pretty bad. And part of that really does come from the fact that, like, even if they are okay, you only can really gain value from them 1/4 of the time until you set up a lot of deck fixing, and by that point, you know, why would you not deck fix something better? And clubs kind of exemplify that. Spades do that as well, but in a little bit of a kind of different way. We start with Blackboard, which of course does work with clubs and spades. It gives ×3 molt if all cards held in hand are spades or clubs. Now, you might be thinking, wait a minute, doesn't that mean that, like, you're not playing the spades and clubs? And yeah, you would be right. Technically, Blackboard actually synergizes with, you know, hearts and diamonds the best. Of course, I mean, if you make your entire deck clubs and spades, then it doesn't matter. But getting the hearts and diamonds out of your hand to get the ×3 value of Blackboard is very important. I've had so many runs where I'll take Blackboard and not even go for flushes. I'll just play out whatever I have in my hand, and my jokers will do all the scoring, and then Blackboard's effectively just a ×3 molt joker that really isn't that hard to do. As long as you use your discards properly and stuff like that, you can pretty much guarantee that your hand is full of only, the black suits to get a lot of value out of Blackboard. When you do set up Blackboard this way, it actually is really, really strong. I'm leaning towards Blackboard being like a pretty strong joker overall, and I've never really been that disappointed by it. Yeah, you can low roll, right? You can make it so, hey, your entire hand is all these like red suit cards, or your poker hand, you're not really playing any, or you're playing towards a certain poker hand and you miss. Blackboard can kind of lose a lot of value there. Arrowhead is actually pretty interesting. Played cards with the spade suit give plus 50 chips when scored. This is actually one of the best chip jokers in the entire game, and it can easily carry your early and kind of mid game pretty well. Stuntman, a very well-known joker, gives plus 250 chips at the cost of 2 hand size, right? And Stuntman is already considered a very, very powerful joker, especially in the early and mid game. So if you're playing Arrowhead, you don't have the downside of Stuntman with basically the entire upside. Yeah, I mean, it does suffer the same issue as all the other, flush cards, where you can't guarantee that you'll have it all the time, but when you do get it, I mean, Arrowhead's just very powerful. I think it's probably the second most powerful of these, flush jokers that, synergize with on-score effects. I mean, obviously, it's Bloodstone is the strongest, right? None of them come close to Bloodstone, but Arrowhead is pretty close, or not pretty close, but it is still quite strong, and don't sleep on it. It is, a very valuable joker that, if used in the right situations, can really, win your runs and, make it so you get out of the early game very powerful. Because, again, 250 chips, if you add even, 10 molt to that, that's 2,500 score just from the Arrowhead, and that's nothing to scoff at. Nothing at all. So, there are, of course, a lot of jokers that do synergize with, suits that aren't necessarily specific, right? You have Flower Pot, which gives ×3 molt if poker hand contains a diamond card, a club card, a heart card, and a spade card. I mean, realistically, you need to be playing like wild cards to make Flower Pot work. And like I said, with, you know, seeing double wild cards are kind of not easy to get. There's only one tarot card in the entire game that can generate wild cards, or you can pick them up from like standard packs, I guess, but not going to be consistent. And playing a hand with those 4 suits without wild cards is very hard. Flower Pot is one of the hardest jokers in the entire game to get its condition, and it only gives ×3 mold. I just talked about Blackboard, which I, described as being pretty simple and easy to get its condition for the same upside. Yeah, Flower Pot, it's really not that great of a joker. Ancient Joker, on the other hand, is amazing. Each played card with a displayed suit gives 1.5x molt when scored, and the suit changes at the end of each round. It's Bloodstone, but it doesn't have the 1 and 2 condition. However, it is like very emblematic of a deck that, hey, you can't really deck fix to make Ancient Joker work. The thing on Ancient Joker is you kind of want to have an even amount of each suit so you can actually use it, because it's hard coded to be randomly cycling through all 4 suits, right? It can't select the suit that it just had, note, but it also is one of, it's not like, say, Idol or Mail and Rebate or, other jokers of similar nature, where if you only have like a specific suit or card, it will eventually only be like that. Ancient Joker is guaranteed to cycle through every suit. So you do have to have a lot of ways to cycle through your deck. You want to have a lot of hands, you want to have a lot of discards to get the most value out of it. Or you could have like Smeared Joker, which is really good, but we'll get to that later. Ancient Joker, though, incredibly powerful. It's one of the most powerful jokers in the entire game, especially for flush builds. And similar to Bloodstone, you want to be having a lot of levels in your poker hand and your flush to get the most value out of it, as well as retriggers are super powerful with Ancient Joker. Like I said, your Sock and Buskin, your Hack, your Hanging Chat are all just amazing with Ancient Joker. Mwah. Very beautiful joker. It's one of my favorite to play with, and it's honestly almost skill testing how good this joker, like how useful this joker is, and really should be one that's on a lot of people's radars to pick up in the run if they can make it work. Castle is actually a very solid chip joker. It gains a max, so what it does is this joker gains +3 chips per discarded suit card. The suit changes every round. I do have to apologize, there's currently a thunderstorm going on, literally the moment I talked about Castle. Card must be cursed. Anyway, you gain a maximum of +15 chips per discard. This can actually, get kind of out of hand pretty quickly. It is similar to Ancient Joker, so you can't really have a deck of all one card, but Castle scales very solidly. It can pretty consistently get over 15 chips per round if you are, if you have a lot of discards and you are actually, getting a lot of value out of it. And, in only a couple of rounds, it can get pretty large, and it's pretty well known that chip jokers, for the most part, are quite bad, as a lot of them, don't give that many chips, don't scale that easily, or, etc., right? But Castle, I find to be one of the better chip jokers. It's just consistent, and while a big way to describe chips is that they act as a form of X-Molt, you do have to be careful, right? Because of the fact that, sometimes, the amount of levels in your poker hand you have effectively makes it so your castle is only a 2 times bonus or whatever, right? But then you consider the fact that Jupiter actually gives some of the worst scaling of any, any planet. Then Castle really becomes hey, this is actually pretty good in a lot of flush builds, just in general. Of course, like I said, it's Ancient Joker, you want to have a similar amount of each suit, so do be careful with that. Smeared Joker is actually one of my favorite jokers. What it does is it makes hearts and diamonds count as the same suit, and then spades and clubs count as the same suit. This is unbelievably powerful with Ancient Joker, because it makes it so that your Ancient Joker is effective more often. And like I said, Ancient Joker is incredibly powerful. Smeared Joker value is just really good. It makes your castle better. It makes it so you can run a lot of different of these flush jokers together. Not that I would really recommend it, but you can do it. You could technically run Smear Joker, run all like spades in your deck, and then have Onyx Agate plus Arrowhead, and that's funny. It is really funny, but I wouldn't call that amazing. But the realistic best combination is Bloodstone plus Rough Gem. That one is really good. I've had that before, and it's incredibly fun to play with. Then last, but kind of certainly not least, we have the Tribe. It gives ×2 Molt if played hand contains a flush. Just solid. It's not hard to get. It's one of the easiest ×2 Molt jokers to activate, and like I said, flushes, you're playing a lot of cards, so you could get, Molt cards, or you have Bloodstone, etc. It actually works quite well with the on-score add plus Molt of the jokers. Gluttonous, Wrathful, Greedy, Lusty, and Onyx Agate do actually synergize pretty well with the Tribe. It's not the greatest joker, I do have to say, but if you are playing a flush build, you don't really feel bad taking it, so it can be pretty good. There's some other jokers that are kind of miscellaneous, right? Like Droll Joker gives +10 Molt if played hand contains a flush. Crafty Joker gives +80 chips if played hand contains a flush. Seance, if poker hand is a straight flush, create a random spectral card. And Four Fingers, all flushes and straights can be made with 4 cards. Let's be real here. Droll and Crafty Joker and Seance are all pretty bad. Yeah, straight flushes are incredibly powerful and can be really strong, but random spectral cards aren't worth it for the most part, and it's not like Seance is that good in the first place. Four Fingers, however, can be really good for the opposite reason. It actively makes it easier to hit those straight flushes. Straight flushes have, I think they're tied for the second best scaling in the entire game, and they have Neptune has a really high base chip value. I didn't put it on here, I actually should have, but whatever. The reason that Four Fingers is so good is, a scenario you can have is that you create a straight that is like, say, 10, 9, 8, 7 of spades, and then you play a 2 of spades. That will count as a straight flush. Or you could play like 10, 9, or 10, 9, 7, and like 2 that are all spades, and then the 8 is like a heart, and that will also count as a straight flush. That makes, Four Fingers actually an incredibly powerful scoring joker, even though you wouldn't think it was, right? If you didn't know that interaction, Four Fingers is probably not the greatest, but including that interaction, Four Fingers actually becomes a really, really powerful joker. So, we do get to talk about the planet, which is, of course, Jupiter. Flushes actually scale quite poorly for a 5-card hand. They start at 35 × 4, which is one of the higher amounts, right? It's higher than a straight, which is 30 × 4. But they only increase by 15 chips and 2 Molt every time you gain a level of Jupiter. That being said, don't ignore Jupiter just because it's less valuable. It's still incredibly important to get as many levels in your planet no matter what poker hand you're playing, because they just provide so much. But you do have to be careful, right? You're not getting as much from Jupiter, so your beginning flush is going to be pretty weak, like when you start out the run, because hey, each level just is less valuable. That being said, though, if you get Telescope, or you have, Blue Steels, etc., it really isn't the worst, right? It still scales pretty decently. It scales better than it still scales better than like pairs, and I think it scales better than 2-pair, and like high card and all that, so it's still not the worst, but you do have to understand the limitations of, the planet card. Then last, but actually very certainly not least, we have Checkered Deck. Checkered Deck is like the flush deck. Now, you do have to note that Checker Deck makes it so you start your run with 26 spades and 26 hearts in your deck. So diamonds and clubs, which are realistically the two worst suits, can't really work with Checker Deck. However, spades and hearts are incredibly powerful, so getting them is pretty good. Checker Deck is just fun. It's probably the most clear direction or game plan of any deck. I'm playing flushes. I'm playing Checker Deck to play flushes. I'm playing as many flushes as I can. There's not really that good of, you really shouldn't even be playing other things with Checker Deck, to be honest, because of how consistent it is with flushes. Do note that if you have a hand of 9 or more cards, you are guaranteed to always have a flush in your hand because of math. I mean, I'm not a mathematician, but I just know how this works. So basically, if you have 9 cards in hand and there's only 2 suits in your entire deck, the bare minimum you can have is 4 of one suit and then 5 of the other suit, no matter what you do, which is actually pretty impactful. It makes jokers like Juggler or Troubadour like actually a lot better. It makes it so getting the hand size voucher is a lot better, and then having a guaranteed flush every single hand can be pretty good. Of course, I mean, having a guaranteed score every hand no matter what is good, but you do have to talk about like just the fact that you're always guaranteed to have your score is very, very nice. Also, this meme is so funny because, yeah, it does make it so, like, the window and the club, it don't matter if you do roll into them. You can't, unless you add cards to your deck or you change them with tarot cards, you can't have diamonds or clubs, so, yeah. But, yeah, that's gonna be it for me. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell button. It's really useful. A lot of people have been doing it more, and to be on your subscription feed or up in the bell in the corner, so people don't miss out on the videos. I've got many comments about people not seeing things, and it happens. But yeah, my socials are there on screen or down in the description. Join my Discord to talk more about Balatro or really anything that's going on. And yeah, I will see you guys next time. Have a good one. Peace out.